So I'm going to go ahead and get started with our meeting officially. This meeting is a meeting of the Board of Education in public for the purpose of conducting the school district's business, and is not to be considered a public community meeting. The Board of Education is meeting electronically due to the gathering size restrictions as delineated in MCL 333.2253. The public may participate in the meeting by joining the Zoom link listed above. Board members may be contacted through the emails listed below. There's a time for public participation during the meeting as indicated in the agenda. Upon prior request to the superintendent, the district shall make reasonable accommodation for a person with disabilities to be able to participate in the meeting. Requests for special assistance may be sent to liz.goodwin@bhas.org. I call this meeting to order officially at 5:32 p.m. We will begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'm asking that everyone unmute and say the pledge with me. All righty, let's go. I pledge allegiance
to
to
the
the flag
of
of the United
States
States
of America
of America and to the republic
Republic
for which it
for
stands,
which it stands,
one nation,
one nation,
under God,
under God,
indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty
liberty
and
and
justice
justice for all.
Secretary Triplett, can you please call the roll?
Okay. Go through the things. Trustee Rocket Martin,
You're muted, Miss Martin.
present.
Trustee Lou Buchanan,
Trustee Buchanan,
Trustee Trenton Bowens,
Present.
Board Treasurer Creighton,
Present.
Secretary Triplett, President, Vice President Bradley,
Present.
President Robinson.
present. All right, we have a quorum. Next on our agenda is approval of the agenda. Each of our board members have had an opportunity to review the agenda in its entirety. Liz, if you could just give us a quick scroll to allow everyone to review it really quickly. Thank you very much. Can I have are there any concerns regarding the agenda? And if not, can I have a motion to accept the agenda?
I move that the minutes be accepted.
The agenda?
The agenda.
Thank you. So is there a second?
Second.
Okay, so approval of the agenda has been moved by Trustee Rocket Martin and supported by Vice President Bradley. Secretary Triplett, can you please call the roll?
Trustee Martin Rocket,
Yes.
Rocket Martin. Trustee Lou
Yes.
Buchanan. Trustee Trenton Bowens,
Present.
we're approving the agenda.
I'm sorry. Yes, sorry. Yes.
Trustee Treasurer Creighton,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Vice President Bradley,
Yes.
President Robinson.
Yes. Okay, so that motion passed. Next on our agenda is public comment on agenda items only. Before I call for public comment, I want to ensure that everyone is aware that the Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on district matters. Tonight, there are 3 areas for comment on the agenda: public comment on agenda items only, open public comment, which is at the end, and then there's also an opportunity for public comment towards the bottom, which she's getting to. Scroll a little bit for me, Liz. So there's an opportunity for comment on our teaching and learning section. Correct?
No,
Per policy. No?
not for, we did not put the public comment on for the working board, only when we're
Okay, so
going
we're
to
gonna do it for
approve.
next week. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're gonna, thank you for clarifying, Dr. Shelton. So we're gonna have 2 areas for public comment. That's going to be at the start of the meeting where we are and towards the end for open public comment. But next week, you all will have an opportunity to comment on that agenda item. Per policy 0167.3, which governs board participation at board meetings, we request that you preface your comments by an announcement of your name, address, and group affiliation, if and when appropriate. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to a 3-minute duration, and per our bylaws, no participant may speak more than once during this meeting. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. If you have specific questions for the board or executive team that require follow-up, please email those directly to liz.goodwin@bhas.org. Is there anyone on the line for public comment on agenda items only? All right, hearing none, we can proceed. The next item on our agenda is board business. And we have to issue a vote on behalf of our district for our particular region. We are not going to be entering that vote today, but we're going to be discussing the candidates, and then we'll be taking vote next week. So we are members of Region 3, and the candidates that we are considering for vote, the first one is Pamela Dickinson. Scroll down a little bit, Liz. Nope, to her bio. Okay, so I'm sorry, Liz. Okay, right there. So it's for Pamela Dickinson, and her offices held are president, secretary, and treasurer. She's been on her board for 6 years. Her MSAB certification, she's a certified board member. She's received that award. She's received an award of merit and award of distinction. Her election statement is that she's running for the MASB Board of Directors for Region 6. She believes that in our current social climate, she states, I can bring a fresh outlook and a diverse perspective to the board. I have strong leadership, communication, and creative analytical skills that make me well-equipped for this position. I am a strong advocate for public education, and I feel wholeheartedly that the Kalamazoo County needs to be represented on the board of MASB with innovative leaders, education for Region 6. The qualifications that make me an ideal candidate is that I am an award-winning, community-conscious professional with 25 years of experience in nonprofit leadership. I feel as though my experience and skills are uniquely aligned to contribute to the governance team and the mission of MASB. Thank you for your consideration. Our next candidate is Ella Harrington from Covert Public Schools in Van Buren County. She served a term on the board for 2 years. Her offices held are treasurer. She has certification as a board member. She's received an award for that and also an award of merit. Her statement is a little bit longer. She says, I am Ella Harrington, a current school board member and the treasurer of the Covert Public School District. I have served on the school board for a total of 2 years, and I work for the state of Michigan in public service for over 30 years. I'm applying for a position on the Michigan Association of School Boards of Directors because I have a strong passion for education and I desire to enhance my knowledge and experiences while being part of a team that is frontline to develop policy and implement procedures to advance schools and communities across the state of Michigan. As a public servant, I commit myself to staying actively engaged in my community by volunteering and working to ensure the voices of others are heard. I've been involved in various organizations and committees and held leadership positions. Van Buren Civic Organization, National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, the Community Action Program, UAW Local 6000, Civil and Human Rights, Education, Labor Relations, Grievances, and Miss Southwest Michigan Scholarship Program. I have a bachelor's degree in family life education and an associate's degree in business administration management. My experiences in my education have prepared me to take on a leadership role within the MASB, and I am excited for the opportunity to connect and share ideas and educational values with board members across the state. I believe that it is important for students to learn and experience all they can. I am an advocate for equitable, accessible, and quality education for all. All learning begins at home. However, the community, schools, and board members, administrators, and teachers play a significant role in shaping educational growth and experiences. We must work together to grow and strengthen our schools throughout the state. In this fast-changing society, we are frontline workers building the future with confidence. I would be honored to serve on the MASB Board of Directors because it allows the opportunity to develop initiatives that prioritize diversity, unity, teamwork, and network. In addition, I would engage in sharing and enhancing innovative ideas to improve schools and communities across the state by engaging in continuous professional development and working with people of various ethnicities and socioeconomic classes. I am certain that I will be able to help my district and other districts implement creative ideas for schooling while in the 21st century. And then our third candidate is Mr. Don Myers of Harper Creek Community Schools in Calhoun County. He has served 10 years on the board. He's held an office as vice president. His certifications are he's a certified board member and has received that award, an award of merit, an award of distinction, a master board member award, and a master diamond award. He's currently the incumbent. In his election statement, he states, because we are currently amid the most challenging time facing public education, I am seeking re-election to the MASB Board of Directors. Educating all students, as well as working with teachers and support personnel, has been my passion for 48 years. My goal is to work with MASB's staff and directors to strengthen and creatively maximize student learning during and after the pandemic. Throughout my career, I worked as a teacher, as an instructional specialist, as a secondary principal, as a superintendent, and as a mentor for new superintendents. In 10 years of retirement, I was active as a substitute teacher, as an interim principal, and as a grant monitor for the state. I currently serve my community as a school board member for Harper Creek Community Schools, having attained the Master Diamond Award level. I received a certificate of achievement as an advocacy skills specialist. This training will support my efforts to advocate for all students and board members. In 2019, I was elected to the MASB Board of Directors representing Region 6. As a board member, I work on MASB's finance and policy committees and actively represent MASB on the State Special Education Advisory Committee, currently as an alternate. I'm active in my local community as well as the statewide education community. I monitor schools with our legislators and governors to advocate for our students in local districts regarding new education legislation. On a personal level, I'm married to a retired elementary teacher, an administrator, and the father of 2 daughters. One daughter is a secondary school teacher in Ionia County, and the other is a community initiatives officer with the Battle Creek Community Foundation. My favorite role is being the proud grandpa of 6, ages 22 to 1. I also volunteer as a dive rescue specialist for the Calhoun County Sheriff's Office. I'm honored to be considered to serve an additional term on the MASB Board of Directors representing Region 6. If re-elected, my focus will be to work within the MASB Board of Directors to help our districts provide the best education possible for all public school students during and after the pandemic. My advocacy will serve the MASB's work to provide an equitable education for all students, which includes equitable funding for every school. And so the reason that we're reviewing these candidates tonight is because as a school district, we have the responsibility in entering who our vote is as a district for one of the candidates that we have reviewed bios for. And so we will not be taking vote tonight, but because we're responsible for providing a vote next week, I want to ensure that we have an opportunity to discuss whether we have any feedback individually on each of these candidates. And I will open the floor up to any of our trustees that would like to make a statement.
President Robinson.
Go ahead, Secretary Triplett, you have the floor.
Yeah, when I went through and I read it, I saw on there and I went through, I didn't know that we were voting as a board. And so I went through and I was looking at the information and I voted. So is that gonna mess up or do we vote individually? So I don't know how to take my vote back.
We'll have to follow up on where your vote would have gone, Secretary Triplett. Liz actually enters the vote on our behalf as a district. So
Okay, thank you.
our deadline is for, I believe it's the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken, but I have to double check that date. But Liz actually has to enter our vote on behalf of Benton Harbor area schools. And then once they receive our vote, they're gonna send her a follow-up to ensure to let her know that the vote was received. So we actually, as a board, have to vote on this information as a district.
Okay, thank you. It didn't explain that. I just was going through, just going through each thing, and then it allowed me to go in and it allowed me to vote. So I thought we had to go in and vote individually. So I'm sorry.
It's okay. And then being that you vote, you have some input who you selected. So I'd be interested in hearing that.
Okay.
Who was your choice, your person of choice, Trustee Triplett or Secretary Triplett?
I voted for Ella Harrington from Colbert. That's in Van Buren County, and it's right up the road. I've had an opportunity to work with Ms. Harrington on some initiatives and what have you. So I've seen her work down through the years. So and I know her commitment to public education as well, up close and personal, because she's been there fighting for Colbert Public Schools for some time now. And so that's why I voted for Ms. Harrington, and she is closer to us. Colbert is not that far away. And so I took that into consideration to have some representation from down on this part of the state as well.
Okay, thank you for that. And I did go ahead and pull up the email just to provide the clarification for everyone. So our email that they sent to us let us know that we received the ballot with the 3 candidates, Pamela Dickinson, Ella Harrington, and Don Myers. And it says to help your board make an informed decision. They had sent the candidate booklet to us. Please ask your superintendent secretary to ensure this item is placed on your February agenda. Once your board determines which candidate it wishes to vote for, please convey this information to your superintendent secretary so that your ballot can be submitted. Completed ballots must be submitted and confirmed by the superintendent secretary by 1 p.m. on Wednesday, March the 3rd.
Okay, thank you so very much.
You're welcome. Did anyone else? Go ahead.
She can take my vote out and then just as a board, we can go through.
I'm gonna actually request that Liz send a follow-up to that.
Okay.
Because I didn't attempt to go in and vote or anything like that. So I was unaware that we would even allow us to do that. Right. So we can just follow up and see if that was somehow perceived as our vote or what they do with that information.
All right, thank you.
Right.
You're welcome.
Because when I read through the bios, I never saw a place where they said we could vote. Okay. So yeah.
It said next down at the bottom, so I went to next, and that's where it was.
Oh.
Yeah, because it came up on mine too when I had read the bios to vote. So that's why I had thought, and I said, well, I'll leave it alone and see what was going to happen with the next process.
Okay, and I know that we have a habit of entering in discussion, but just to ensure that we are not talking over each other, I want you all to allow me an opportunity to give you the floor so we can ensure that everyone is heard. Trustee Rockette Martin, when you reviewed the bios, did you have any input on who you thought would be the best candidate?
You know, I don't know any of them, but I looked at Ella's and I was kind of leaning toward her for the simple fact that she has that associates that deals with the community and family type thing. And I kind of like the experiences that she had. Um, the fact that, what did she say, 30 years she had been there and worked in the district and um, and served in the capacities that she had been serving in. So I was kind of leaning toward Ella Harrington also.
Okay, and Vice President Bradley, did you have any input or did you have a preference when reviewing the bios yourself?
From just looking at the bios and then listening to Secretary Triplett and Trustee Martin, I would, I'm leaning towards Ella Harrington too because of the close association of the counties. And then we usually don't get a lot of representation. I know the other young lady is from Kalamazoo, and then you have someone from Battle Creek, but I also like the fact that there is someone, closer in our region that can kind of understand the needs of this tri-county area in this corner of Michigan.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your input. Do we have any other trustees that would like to provide feedback on the bios before we proceed with our agenda this evening? As stated, we're not voting on them particularly, but because we will be taking votes next week, we want to ensure that if there's any other feedback that would like to be provided this evening, that we have an opportunity to do that. All right. Oh, did someone unmute to speak? Okay, so we are going to move on to our next agenda item. We have committee reports, and each of our committees did select a chair as requested. So I am going to call on our chairs of each committee one by one, and they are going to provide their committee updates. So I will allow our Vice President Bradley to begin with his report on our on the committee that we are on. Vice President Bradley, are you prepared to give your report?
Yes, I am. Well, we had met last week, and we had a list of things that we had went over there. And the main things we kind of talked about were the asbestos abatement, and they were providing an update on that. And some of the abandoned buildings, they had to go in as well and do that. We were looking at
I'm sorry, Trustee Vice President Bradley. He's given his report on the Operations and Facilities Committee, everyone. Okay, proceed.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, and then we also talked about Sorter Elementary School and looking at possibly reopening that as a opening school. And they had an architect walk through there to take a look at that building, and because there were some other issues with another building we wanted to reopen. We discussed the farm lease. And we also looked at an outsourcing option, and we're going to keep on discussing that and take some time to think about that. The North Shore property sale, and Mr. Johnson had recommended that be planned sale be canceled. And I think that we'll be discussing that more in the finance area as well. Then we did a real property inventory of the different buildings that we have in the district. And then we also had a discussion of in that list of what we want to try to maintain, and then what we want to try to look at possibly demolishing in the future to save costs. So that was some of the areas we talked about.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions for Vice President Bradley? If not, we're going to proceed with our next committee reports. All right, hearing none, we're going to move on to Treasurer Creighton, and she is actually trustee of both our Finance and Human Resources committees. So we will allow her to take the floor, and Treasurer Creighton, you can proceed with whichever report you'd like to put first.
Good evening, everyone. At our finance committee, um, we talked about banking. Can you guys hear me?
Yes,
Hello?
ma'am.
Hello? Oh, okay. Yeah, we talked about banking. There were no changes with the banking. He did talk a little bit about some possible investments. And also, right now, we're currently using credit cards. And so our finance director talked about possibly in the future moving to like what they call a P card, which is more like an account. And there are more benefits for the district to secure and protect finances with that. We talked about the district's debt, and pretty much, we all know that we're in a deficit. And so our finance director talked about ways that in the future, he and his team is looking at ways to remove some of the debt. He talked about some short-term and long-term possibilities. Also talked about some revenue generating options on how we can bring more money in, not like little small fundraisers, but big items that could possibly, bring the district a lot of money so that we're not, I know the old people used to say robbing Peter to pay Paul. So ways to bring in more money at a on a larger scale. We talked about future topics that we would like to learn about if we're new board members, and things that we would like to know about that has happened in the future that we might not know about, but that would definitely, in the past, that could potentially affect the future. We also talked about grants, and our superintendent shared this week. I know you guys hopefully had a look at the update with that CARES grant that a lot of people had questions about. I think it was like a total of $3 million that we received in the CARES grant monies. Um, the finance director talked about financial reports. Everything was pretty much consistent. There were no like major changes. What questions might you have about the finance committee report?
Thank you so much. She's asking, and does anybody
Okay.
have any questions for her for the finance report? If not, she's going to proceed with human resources. All right, go ahead, Treasurer Creighton.
Okay. And it was a very productive meeting as well. So human resources, we had a good meeting. We talked about the importance and parameters regarding confidentiality. Many of the things that we all know, but just for the public, the things that we do talk about in the HR committees, we kind of talk about them, and then at the board table, so that we're not breaching confidentiality, we may or may not give names and details, just to protect the rights of the individuals and also liability for the district. So we talked about that. We talked about policies and procedures that are in place with the new administration to move the HR department in the right direction. We talked about nepotism and conflict of interest, and we also talked about the organizational chart with who the chain of command and who should report to who. And if you have questions where to start, we're not a top to bottom. Just saying that the superintendent is not accessible, but there are protocols and procedures in place so that his door is not being ran down with small issues that could potentially be handled by the department chairs or the building principals. And so the chain of commands, we talked about that, and just how to move on that chart. And then we also talked about a new position of a grant accountant that is needed in the district's finance department to help manage the grants that are coming in, and some grants that we currently have. Right now, we do have a senior finance director, and he has a few staff that work under him. but for this is not an entry level. This is like a mid-grade position of someone that could help kind of be the financial liaison between the grants office, but also the business office to handle the business and finance side of the grants. And that the grant position, I know someone had a question about, what's the difference? And so that grant director position handles more of the educational side of implementing the grants, and the grants accounting will be that person that'll make sure, the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. And I think that's my report.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So I'll jump in for a moment. I sent Treasurer Creighton some positive energy yesterday and was letting her know that she has been selected to be not only the treasurer, but the chair of 2 of our committees. So I just want to take a moment to commend her for accepting that position of leadership because, as you all know, we're majority and new board, but I just think it's awesome that we're all jumping in and taking on those leadership roles. So thank you very much for your committee reports and for accepting those positions of leadership as well. Does anyone have any questions for her Human Resource Committee report? All right, awesome. Our last committee report is from Curriculum and Special Education. And can we have our chair go ahead and provide a...
Well, first I would like to say that we had an amazing meeting in the curriculum and instruction committee meeting. We had an opportunity to meet all of our principals at the elementary level, our elementary leadership, the principal at Discovery Enrichment, Delandria Barnes, and her instructional facilitator, Carolyn Bowman. And then we I met Dr. Ryan Gobo, the principal at Martin Luther King Elementary School, and his instructional facilitator, Connie Flood, and Brian Litton, who's the principal at Fairplain East, and his instructional facilitator, Dion Lockett. And so each principal did a presentation on their curriculum, the types of things that they're doing in their school as it relates to instruction, and had opportunity to see some very unique and fantastic that are going on in our buildings. We did talk about cohesiveness because one building presented something and another building presented another, but it does not mean that they're not all doing the same thing. So that was something that we discussed. It was an environment where people were able to ask questions, and it was a very good space and place. I think that there's some great work that's being done from what I've seen and what was presented at the curriculum and instruction. Rounded up. Principals are working hard at the elementary division. We didn't get the opportunity to meet the secondary principals. They will be presenting in February at our curriculum meeting. So I learned a lot of information, and this was very
Secretary Triplett, you're breaking up just
great
a bit.
things. Yeah.
The last bit of what you were saying was breaking up a little bit. We heard, I think the last thing that we could really hear from you is that you all met with the elementary principals this month, and then next month it's going to be the secondary principals, but you were kind of choppy there.
Yes, I'm sorry. The particular presentation was for our elementary principal. I got opportunity to see some amazing their principals, not the agenda, but they will be presented in February at our next community curriculum and instruction meeting.
Okay, so if you had a difficulty hearing him, what he was saying is that they got presentations from the elementary principals, and the secondary principals will be presenting at the next meeting in February later this month. Okay, and I believe someone said, excuse me, but I'm not exactly sure if that was one of our trustees. Okay, possibly not. So does anyone have any questions for our chair, Secretary Triplett? All right, moving right along, we have the
I do
adoption
have
of.
a small question. I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go
I
ahead.
do have a small question.
Treasurer Creighton. Treasurer Creighton, you have the floor. Go ahead with your question.
Can you hear me?
I can now. Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to use my AirPods. You can hear me? Okay. So my question was to Mr. Triplett. I just wondered, I heard him say that each school was doing something different. I just wonder, as a district, because I have not seen this yet, but this does not mean it does not exist. Do we have like a school improvement plan or district improvement plan that we're using to drive the different initiatives that are going on in each village?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, we did not go into detail as it related to our district improvement, our DIP and our SIPs for each individual building. As I said, it was just introductory, but I did speak to the superintendent. I think we had a meeting earlier that we had talked about, and there is a district improvement plan, and each school should have its own a school improvement plan that's aligned with the district improvement plan. So that'll be something that we will be working on. I will be getting with Dr. Townsend and Dr. Shelton as we get ready to start forming and talking about how the curriculum and instruction committee will look moving forward.
All righty, thank you everyone for your committee presentations and your questions. Next on our agenda is adoption of the MASB Superintendent Evaluation Tool for the 2021 cycle. And so just so everyone know, last week the board had a meeting where we were trained on the MASB's version of a superintendent evaluation. It was an extremely successful training. We had a trainer from MASB come in and train the full board. We only had, I think, one public participant who chose to sat in on that meeting for anyone that missed it, but it was an awesome training. Our superintendent was also there and his executive assistant to ensure that our board is all on the same page as it relates to evaluation of the superintendent. And so we have to actually take a vote next week to determine and confirm if we're going to be using that tool. And so right now it's just an opportunity for brief discussion. We had discussion last week, but just an opportunity if anyone else would like to provide any discussion on the utilization of that tool. So I'll proceed by saying that is the tool that I feel most comfortable with. I think that with us going through the training as a board and having our individual questions and concerns clarified, it allowed us to all be on one accord with, those clarifications that were provided. And our superintendent also communicated at that training that it was a tool that he was comfortable with, being that we utilized that process for his evaluation most recently. So I just want to communicate that I support us adopting that as our standard evaluation tool for the 2021 cycle. But I will open the floor up to any other trustees that would like to provide their input on that as well.
Robinson.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I too think that at this particular superintendent did say that he felt comfortable with it because it is our responsibility to come to some type of resolve as to if it's going to be that because if this is going to be the instrument that we're going to use. I did have some concerns, as we stated in the meeting, that in some of the various domains and some of the different categories and what have you, how some of them were very, very broad and left a lot of room for interpretation. And so, you know, when we look at it, and I think as we continue to go and develop this, there are some things I would just hope that we would be able to, in partnership with the superintendent and for ourselves, to be able to look at it in more and put things that we would definitely be looking for, as I stated in the meeting, because I think that that will also give the superintendent some support and some specific things that you know, so that he will know what it is when we look at, if we look at something that in the category of being highly effective as it relates to goal development. And so specifically, how does that look? And so again, I too think that this would be a great tool, because the board used it last year, the superintendent is comfortable with it. And I think that we can get all the support that we need from the MASB if we have any questions moving forward.
Okay, thank you so much, Secretary Triplett. And so what he was commenting on is that when we rate the superintendent in each of the measures, he was communicating that some of that could be according to our individual opinions. And so his point that he made in the training is that we need to ensure that we have some type of specifications in there so that our superintendent is aware of what it is that we're looking for as a board. And some of us saw things a little bit different. In our training, they gave us examples of certain situations, and then we were to provide feedback on how we would rate that. And some of us, you know, thought it would be rated a little bit different than others. And so what Secretary Triplett is saying is that ensuring that we have those expectations clear, not only amongst the board members, but for the superintendent. So he has that as a guide in his work moving forward. So thank you so much, Secretary Triplett. Is there anyone else that had any feedback on that MASB evaluation tool?
Sorry, President Robinson.
Yes,
I understand the superintendent supports this method of the adoption of the superintendent evaluation. My question is there any other organizations that do the superintendent evaluations that we could use, or we're just using this one? I mean, I understand if he feels comfortable, let's go through it and do it, but we haven't even looked at other options if there's any out there. I hope I'm making sense with that.
No, I understand what you're saying. So you're saying you are aware that we are comfortable with the MASB tool, but you're saying what would be the reason against looking at other tools of potential use?
Correct. And are we being charged for this adoption, or is free?
We're not, to my understanding, we're not being charged if we choose to use the tool. We were charged for the training that we participated in. So I would you know, for you from that standpoint, I would point out that we've paid money to be appropriately trained in this particular tool. So if we choose to go with a different tool, even though we've come together and had that as kind of like a you know, teamwork building exercise, we've been trained in utilizing a tool that we're not going to utilize, and I don't know if that would be an effective use of our money.
Understood. And how much was the training for the board?
Liz, we may have to actually start follow up with you on that question, because I know Liz went through ordering that for us, but I don't think she's prepared with that specific. So we'll get that emailed out to the board.
All right, thank you.
And just for clarification, Trustee Bowens, we're not taking vote on this tonight. So that particular question that you have, we're going to take vote on this tool in next week's meeting, so we can give you the answer to your question so that you have the specific cost of that training prior to taking or, you know, putting in your vote next week.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, sir.
Trustee Robinson, President Robinson.
Yes, ma'am. You have the floor, Trustee Raquel.
I too am in favor of the MASB evaluation instrument for our superintendent, For one reason, I think it's a positive because I heard the superintendent say he believes he can meet those goals. And I mean, the goals were, it was a lot of things in there that he would have to cover. But I think it was like a positive because it wasn't something that he would be fearing. Can I do this? Or something he'd have to really worry about, but something that he could really use to help him in doing his work for our district. So I was glad to hear that it wasn't a fear or a scare tactic type thing. It was doable. And you want your evaluations. Your evaluations are supposed to really be for the people that are being evaluated for improvement. And so I felt like that instrument would do that for him. There are clarifications we can, put in so that we're all totally on the same page as, different meanings of what different things mean in the document. But I was glad to hear him say, I believe I can get all fours. To me, that's like a strive for perfection, a strive for doing the best job that you possibly can do. And that's what we want in our superintendent.
Okay, we're gonna ask that everyone else mute their mic so we don't have any interruptions on our meeting. All righty. Does any of our other trustees have any comments to add regarding the MASB Superintendent Evaluation Tool? And if not,
I actually
go ahead,
want to
Treasurer.
raise my hand.
You have the floor. Go ahead.
I thought it was a really thank you. I thought it was a really good training. It really showed us, it gave us good hands-on feedback. It was a great team building for us. There were some elements of the evaluation that I thought was possibly unfair. I don't know if that's the right word, but certain things that I just think fair for the superintendent, but unfair as well, because there are things in there that he'll be scored on that we don't have. And so that was one of my concerns, like things about the mission and vision and goals. I know that I keep bringing that up, but I don't know how we would score someone on that, and it's not developed, or it is developed. I'm not sure. So that was one of my things, like, and there were other areas, but I just in the effort to be proactive, I don't know. I was kind of on the fence with that. Like, I really don't even know how to explain it, but I'm a backwards thinker. I believe in backwards design. And so looking at your evaluation, it's supposed to be your roadmap. And I think I shared that. And so there are some underdeveloped, do you want to take this tool and it's supposed to guide and direct you? Do you want, it to guide and direct you when there are some underdeveloped or undeveloped roads? And so I kind of really don't know how I felt about the whole tool, but overall, I thought it was a really good training. I thought it was a really good use of our time, sitting down and just kind of unpacking some of those, items in that rubric, and just talking and discussing, what does this look like to me? What makes you say that? I thought it was a really good eye opener, if nothing else. But I'm not against using a tool. I just wonder, like others, if it's the best tool. Now that we are behind the timeline, I don't really even know, what's the best, solution for that. But moving forward, I don't have a lot of objections. I just kind of had some uneasy kind of thoughts and feelings about it.
All right, thank you so much for your input, Treasurer Creighton. And I want to, if Dr. Townsend doesn't mind, would you mind just giving us your feedback on the superintendent evaluation tool? I know that this is board business, but being that we're discussing your evaluation, I'd just like for you to be able to give your input for any of the community members that may be listening.
Thank you, President Robinson. My number one goal is to lead for excellence. students first and to increase academic achievement every year to get our finances right. And I don't care what tool you give me, I'm gonna try my best for our young people. I'm comfortable with this tool. If there's any other tools that the board thinks is best to evaluate the performance of the superintendent and student achievement, I'll do whatever you ask me to do, but no fear over here.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much. I think just about all of us have provided feedback. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment on this tool? If not, we'll proceed to the next item on our agenda.
President Robinson, this is Secretary Triplett.
You have the floor.
Okay, one thing that's very, very critical, and I think that needs to be understood as it relates to the community and all people that are on tonight listening. The evaluation tool, and that was one thing that we discussed in the workshop, is that the evaluation tool should never be used to be punitive. And so I think historically, oftentimes the evaluation tool has been used to not do what it was designed to do. And so the evaluation is processed in order to strengthen the individual, not to destroy the individual. And so as we go forth and we look at down the road, we'll get an opportunity to look at the annual calendar. There are a lot of things that are put into place that will help. And the goal of this Board of Education is and should always be to strengthen and to grow and to support our superintendent. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Secretary Triplett. So we are going to proceed with the last item within our board business on the agenda, and that is authorized law firms additions. And I know that I stated it first, but I just want to make sure that everyone is clear. Previously in our last year of meetings, we were doing our work sessions and our general meeting within the same meeting. So you all are more than likely used to us taking a vote on everything. Effective last month during our organizational meeting, the board made the decision to go to 2 meetings a month. So we have our work session the first Tuesday of the month, where we go through the agenda items and we discuss everything. And then next Tuesday, we will go through the agenda items as well again, but we will go through them quickly and take our votes. And so this board made the decision to do so. So because we're a fairly new board, so we have an opportunity to have a greater understanding of the information that we're actually taking vote on, just as a measurement of comfort for our board. And Liz, I'm not sure if you're aware, but we're no longer viewing the next item on the agenda.
Technical difficulties, give me just one moment, please.
Okay.
Liz, let me know when you can share. Can everybody see, can you see the agenda now?
Yes.
We can.
Okay, I'll share the agenda until Liz gets settled.
Okay, thank you. So we were on board report B1. Dr. Sheldon, if you could get that open for me, board report B1. You're actually on, yeah, thank you so much.
Please let me know if you see it.
Not just yet, I still see the agenda.
I should be able to do it now.
Okay, so Liz has indicated she can take over. So we're gonna allow Ms. Goodwin to share her screen, and we thank everyone for your patience as we navigate virtual meetings. All right, awesome, awesome. So this is board report B1. And I will read through this. All right, if you could go down a little bit. And this is actually being presented by Dr. Townsell. Dr. Townsell, do you want to read this? I can read it, or it's up to you.
Sure, no problem.
Okay, Liz, you've taken it off. Beautiful children, by the way.
Do you want me to proceed or would you like me to wait?
You can proceed with reading the report if you have it available, and then hopefully Liz can get it back up as you're doing it.
This recommended action of a vote to approve will take place next week. I'm reading this for informational purposes. The subject is authorized law firms addition. The reason for board consideration is one law firm was inadvertently omitted from the list of law firms recommended by the board approval during the organizational meeting last month. Facts and analysis. The law firm of Seacrest Wardle was inadvertently omitted from the list of law firms recommended by the board approval during the organizational meeting. This firm represents Benton Harbor area schools and a number of other Michigan public school districts in the Adar et al. Versus State of Michigan lawsuit. There is no policy reference. This is to be voted on February 9th, 2021. And that recommended action is that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education vote to approve Seacrest Wardell as one of the board's authorized law firms.
Thank you, Dr. Townsell. Do we have any questions regarding that addition? And as stated, this is a law firm that should have been presented to us during our organizational meeting. If you all remember, there were lawyers that we did approve to be utilized. And so what he's indicating is that this is a law firm that should have been included in last month's organizational meeting. So he is planning to bring this before the board for vote next week.
President Robinson, excuse me.
You have the floor, Secretary Triplett.
Yes, when we were in the organizational meeting, we were talking about the law firms. It was requested because we felt a little bit uncomfortable. We requested that they send us the law firms that have been working with and for the district, and we wanted to see what their contracts were, because there was a question asked had there been any RFPs or anything when we got ready to identify our law firms. And we also wanted to see a history of the types of money and what have you that was spent on these law firms that was presented to us to approve in the organizational meeting. And so we had seen that information on the firm that we did approve, just an overview of what type of money, to say what are they doing, what does Troon do as it relates to Benton Harbor area schools, what does this firm do as it relates in the resolution, the thing that he just read, it did say how they represent us. So there's some more information, and I'm not sure who will be responsible for getting that information to us, but that is something that I would like to have before going into a vote with adding this one, since they've already done it before, or they're already representing Benton Harbor. So I don't know the bandwidth of their work, just to give me a general idea. I'm always asking for information for understanding.
Okay. And Trustee Triplett, I'm not sure what it is today, but your connection is just a little bit off. So I don't know if there's a way that you maybe can move your location in your home or come in or come back out. But I know Dr. Townsell had a response to that. I believe the information requested was provided in his most recent weekly update, but I'll mute and allow him to speak as to providing the information on this firm.
Thank you, President Robinson. That information was submitted to the school board members in the weekly status report on last week. I'll ensure that in this week's status report that we have an opportunity to dive more deeper into the specifics about this new law firm that we're looking to request. But I sent that, I believe, Friday to school board members with the information about the previous law firms that were approved.
I did get an opportunity to look at that, what you sent, Dr. Townsend. The only thing that I saw in there, maybe I can go further, but the only firm that I saw in it was True. I didn't see any of the other firms. So I'll look again. It might be an oversight on my behalf. Thank you.
All right, so we are going to move on to item 3 on our agenda, which is handing it over to Dr. Townsend. And he is going to be discussing the policy to adopt electronic board meetings.
Thank you, President Robinson. This is just informational purposes. There will be a resolution for the board to approve on next week. But for clarity and for the public, the board, this is a policy that doesn't exist, but the policy is for electronic Board of Education meetings, that the board may hold electronic meetings and the board members and the public may participate remotely only as permitted by this policy, the Open Meetings Act, and other applicable laws. The definitions in this section apply to this policy only. All other words found on this policy, unless specifically defined, are given their plain meaning. So for example, number 1, medical condition means an illness, injury, disability, or other health-related condition. 2, state of emergency or disaster means a state of emergency or disaster that is declared pursuant to law, charter, or local ordinance by the governor, a local official, governing body, or chief administrative officer, but not the board. 3, two-way communication means telephone, video, or other means of conferencing that allows board members to hear and be heard by both the public and other board members, and allows the public to hear and be heard by other members of the public and the board members during public comment. Real-time type public comment that may be read or shared with board members and the public is sufficient form of two-way communication for purposes of public participation during an electronic board meeting. Permissible reasons for wholly electronic board reasons are, number 1, any reason. Before March 31st, 2021, the board may, for any reason, hold a meeting wholly electronically with every member and public participating remotely. Number 2, state of emergency or disaster. On or before December 31st, 2021, the board may hold a meeting wholly electronically with every board member and the public participating remotely if there's a state of emergency or disaster and convening a meeting in the physical location would risk the personal health or safety of the board or the public. 3, local or state of emergency or disaster. On or before December 31st, 2021, the board may hold a meeting wholly electronically with every board member and the public participating remotely if there is a local state of emergency or disaster that affects the area where the board usually holds its meeting, and convening a meeting in that physical location would risk the personal health or safety of the board or the public. And 4th, all board members participating remotely, the board may hold a meeting wholly electronically with every board member and the public participating remotely if every board member simultaneously satisfies one or more of the conditions identified in Section C of this policy. Section C, permissible reasons for individual board members' remote participation is for any reason before March 31st, 2021, military duty, medical condition on or before December 31st, 2021, statewide state of emergency or disaster on or before December 31st, 2021, local state of emergency or disaster on or before December 31st, 2021. And D, the procedures to accommodate board members' remote participation. The board institutes the following procedures that a board member who is not physically present may be counted toward a quorum, deliberate, and vote at a board meeting. 1, the remote board member must make a public announcement at the beginning of the meeting stating that the board member is attending remotely and, except for remote attendance for military duty, identifying the board member's physical location, which must include the county, city, township, or village in the state from which the board member is attending remotely. The board member's public announcement must be recorded in the minutes. The board and the remote board will ensure there's two-way communication during the meeting. A board member who plans to participate in a meeting remotely must provide notice to president of the board at least 48 hours before the meeting, and notice of electronic meeting must be posted at least 18 hours in advance. The superintendent or designee will ensure that the public notice of the board member's absence and information on how to contact the board member is provided sufficiently in advance of the board meeting so that a member of the public may provide input on or ask questions about any business that will come before the board at the meeting. E, procedures to ensure public participation at electronic meetings. If the board convenes a wholly electronic meeting or any board member participates remotely, the public will also be provided the opportunity to attend the public meeting remotely. The board would not require the public to register or otherwise provide their names or other information as a condition of attending a board meeting, whether in person or remotely. The board may require the public to submit information consistent with public participation rules to participate in public comment portion of the meeting. Electronic board meeting notice requirement. The superintendent or designee will post notice of an electronic board meeting at least 18 hours before the meeting if the board will be convening in a physical location with one or more board members attending remotely pursuant to Section C. The notice must include both the physical and virtual locations of the meeting. If the district has an internet presence that includes monthly or more frequent updates of public meeting agendas or minutes, the notice must be included on the portion of the district's website that is fully accessible to the public, either on the district's homepage or a separate web page dedicated to public notices for non-regularly scheduled or electronic meetings that is accessible through a prominent and conspicuous link on the district's website homepage. The link must clearly describe its purpose for public notice of non-regularly scheduled or electronic meetings. The notice must clearly explain, number one, why the board is holding an electronic meeting. Number two, how the public may participate remotely if a telephone number, internet address, virtual meeting address, or other information is needed to participate. That information must be specifically provided. 3, how the public may contact board members to provide input on or ask questions about business that will come before the board at a meeting. 4, which board members will be participating remotely, and information about how the public may record or may contact those board members in advance of the meeting to provide input or ask questions about any business that come before the board at the meeting, and how persons with disabilities may participate with the meeting. G, electronic board meeting agenda requirements. The superintendent or designee must post the electronic meetings agenda to the district's website if an agenda exists. The agenda must be posted at least 2 hours before the electronic meeting begins. The board may amend the agenda at the meeting. Thank you, President Robinson.
Thank you. And so just to the board, just as a reminder, I previously sent you all information about our virtual board meetings. And so there were a couple different links that I sent you as it relates to the executive orders in the Open Meetings Act that govern this suggested policy. And so when it was presented to me initially, I did scan through those executive orders as well as the Open Meetings Act, and a lot of that language is directly correlating from those acts. So if you guys want to compare that document to the Opens Meeting Act and the MDHHS epidemic order issued, you all can refer back to that remote work email that I sent out and check those links to kind of review this prior to us voting on this next week. And so you can proceed with your resolution to adopt the electronic board meeting that you'll be sharing with us next week. And then I'll open up the floor for any questions from the board.
Okay, copy. You want me to read the resolution you say?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Resolution to adopt electronic board meeting policy. A regular meeting of the Board of Education will be held electronically pursuant to Open Meetings Act through Zoom with identification number 862-682-69784 on the 9th day of February 2021 at 5:30 in the PM. The meeting will be called to order by President Robinson. We will not acknowledge who's present and absent. And the following preamble and resolution will be offered by a specific member and supported by a specific member of the Board of Education. And the resolution reads that, whereas the Michigan legislature recently amended the Open Meetings Act, Michigan compiled law 15.261 to permit electronic Board of Education meetings to certain specific reasons. B, the board desires to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act and any subsequent amendments. C, the board seeks to accommodate remote participation for both board members and the public to the fullest extent permitted by law. D, the board has been presented with an electronic board meeting policy developed to achieve these goals. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the board adopts the electronic board meeting policy as presented and discussed at the regular board meeting that will be held on February 9th, 2021. And the board rescinds all previously approved resolution and policy as part of resolution and policies that conflict with the electronic board meeting policy. Thank you.
Okay, so let's clarify. We're not taking vote on this afternoon. We are reviewing in our workshop session what we will be discussing for vote for next week's meeting on the 9th. That is why this state's vote is taken on the 9th. So I am going to, at this particular time, open up the floor for any conversation that may be needed or any questions or comments by our trustees. All righty. Hearing none, we are going to proceed to business and finance. We are going to ask that Mr. Johnson lead us in our staff report F1.
Thank you. The first one is the monthly financial reports. This is very similar to the set that you received last month, except obviously the data has changed. Additionally, we have an extra report this month. We have a report shown on pages 16 and 17, which is the cash plus investment report. This report is provided each quarter.
Mr. Johnson, I'm going to ask that you hold on for just a second so we can get the report pulled up. All righty, and I think you can proceed. We have it visible, Dr. Sheldon, if you could scroll down just a bit. All right, go ahead, Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. This report is indeed a package. It includes 15 reports. I think you'll find that this is more reports than most school districts in the state provide their Board of Education each month. And I would note a couple of items. One is on page 14 on the accounts payable. Actually, we can stay on this page for a moment. This is the table of contents showing the 15 reports. If we can jump next to page 4, which is the accounts payable aging report. This one here, typically this page has far fewer lines on it. This is an exceptional month, exceptional in a negative way, because this past month we had a couple of staff members out for a period of time. And of course, we also had the recess as well. But in addition, we received some invoices from at least one vendor, maybe multiple vendors that were months old, and they just recently came to the business office. And then we also received some invoices from one or more other departments that were, for whatever reason, delayed in getting to the office, the business office. So this report is unusually long. We have paid the largest amount the amount that's shown for Sodexo Magic that was paid already this month, and most or all the other payments were also paid. I said this month, and I meant actually in January. So this report will return to a much shorter length next month. And then the other reports throughout this package are similar to those presented last month, except for the cash and investments report. And that concludes my comments on the monthly financial reports. Oh, I did have one other comment, I'm sorry. And this is the total amount that we have to recommend for board approval for payment for the month is a relatively low amount, under $200,000. That's quite low for the district. And that's all I have for the financial reports. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions from our trustees from our board regarding staff report F1 for Mr. Johnson? And just so the community is aware, Mr. Johnson is our Chief Financial Officer. Any questions from the board? And Trustee Bradley, it was indicated that, I'm sorry, Vice President Bradley, it was indicated that your hand was raised earlier. Did I miss a question that you had? Was it for?
Yeah, it was.
Report F1?
Yeah, it was for the last area I was up there. That was my bad. I was on 2 lines, didn't realize I didn't hang the other line up. I did have a question, but not to further delay the meeting. I'll email about that.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
All right, so we're going to proceed with staff report F2. Mr. John.
Thank you. This subject is the North Shore property. The district entered into a a sales agreement for the North Shore Elementary School back in May 31 of 2019, I believe it was. And the real estate values have obviously increased during that time, and this property sale has progressed at a snail's pace over 20 months already. And so it's being recommended this, actually next week, that the Board of Education vote to approve the resolution that you can see before you. And I would note on the bottom of the page, if we can scroll down a little bit, the final paragraph, you'll see that the resolution, if approved by the board, would authorize the superintendent or designee to negotiate and then sign an agreement to end the sale of the property. So this agreement or this resolution does not automatically cancel the sale. It would get the wheels in motion to allow the district to cancel the sale. And then if such an agreement is reached, then that would come back to the full board for approval.
Okay, do we have any questions for Mr. Johnson regarding staff report F2?
Mr. Johnson, this is Secretary Triplett. So basically, we're taking this property off the market right now. That's what you're asking the board to vote to do?
Well, it's actually not on the market right now. I'm recommending that the board approve the resolution that would enable the board to negotiate with the planned buyer to end the sale.
So somebody's planning on buying it. So you're asking us to negotiate with them so that they can buy the property?
No. So the board could then terminate the sale.
So to clarify, Secretary Triplett, the property has been pending sale with a particular buyer for quite some time. And so what he is suggesting is that we negotiate ending the pending sale potentially with the buyer. Is that correct, Mr.
Yes.
Johnson?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any more questions from the board regarding staff report F2? Okay, and so just so everyone's aware, we've stated it a couple times, but we are not taking vote on any of these things. We're just going through them to have these discussions, and then we'll be actually taking vote next week. So if any of our board members think of any additional questions that they may have forgotten to ask, you're more than welcome to send those questions to me, and we can forward those to Mr. Johnson prior to taking our vote next week. We're going to proceed with staff report F3. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. This subject is the farm lease. The district has leased the farm for several years, and we're continuing to negotiate with the previous farmer. And so it's my hope that we will conclude negotiations before by next Monday. And the lease that we'll be recommending may ultimately be for 1 year, for 2 years, or possibly 3 years, but more likely 1 or 2 years. And you see the attachment. So some of the language in this may change. The dollar amount may change modestly, and the term in this contract draft that you see before you is likely to change as well. And that concludes the farm lease presentation.
Okay, do we have any questions? Thank you, Mr. Johnson, for your reports presented today. Do we have any questions for him regarding staff report F3 concerning the farm lease?
Yes, I have a question. So how much in advance, if you said some of the language will change, how much in advance will we get to see it before we actually vote on it to go forth or to go into this partnership before we vote next week?
It's my hope that we can conclude negotiations this week. However, please don't expect any drastic changes. I mean, if anything, or the two changes that I anticipate that we would possibly see would be some fine tuning of the dollar amount, but it's not going to change dramatically. And secondly, the term is going to be nailed down. I think it says 3 years currently in the draft, and that's likely to be shorter. Other than that, I don't anticipate any dramatic changes.
So what is your recommendation, Mr. Johnson, as it relates to this lease?
I plan to recommend that the board approve the lease that you'll see in the next few days.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Johnson, Trustee Rocket Martin.
You have the floor, Ms. Trustee Rocket Martin.
How long have we been leasing this land to these to the farm?
I believe it's been at least 4 or 5 years, and I'd be happy to do some data mining in Skyward, our general ledger system, to see how far back this particular farmer has leased the property.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
President Robinson, I have a question.
Go ahead, Trustee Bradley.
It's Trustee Bowens.
My apologies. I knew that. I don't know why I said the wrong name.
I have to talk after this. I'm stressed with you. My question is, have we ever made an attempt to even sell this land?
I'd be happy to respond to that. I don't believe that the district has marketed this property within the past 5 years. I can't say it never has, because my familiarity with the real estate for this district goes back about 5 years. There was some consideration a while back to the possibility of building a new campus there, which would provide some pretty significant benefits to the district. And having that space would definitely have facilitated that.
Okay, do we have any other questions from our board regarding staff report F3? All right, thank you so much, Mr. Johnson, for providing your reports for this evening. Next up, we have human resources, and these reports will be presented by Mrs. Gale. We are going to begin with staff report H1.
Hello, everybody. Approval of new position, reason for board consideration. When a need arises for additional staff, a new position is submitted to the board for approval. Facts and analysis, it is recommended that the Board of Education vote to approve the position of grant accountant in the Department of Business and Operations as presented. Policy reference 3111, creating a new position. Recommended action to be voted at the regular board meeting next week, that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education votes to approve the grant accountant position in the Department of Business and Operations.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gill. Do we have anyone that has any questions about this particular report? And our screen is showing you some of the requirements, knowledge and skills, terms of employment and things of that nature regarding this particular position. If there are any members of the community that would like to see the details of this description more in detail prior to us voting next week, all of the links that are on our agenda will also be accessible on our website. So you can take more time to look at this a little more in detail. Our board has had an opportunity to review these specifications. And again, we'll be taking vote on this information next week. But at this particular time, does any of our board members have a question regarding staff report H1? Okay, awesome, Ms. Gail. Can you please present staff report H2?
Separation of employment, reason for board consideration. A list of employees whose employment relationship with the district is or will be separated is submitted to the board each month. Facts and analysis. It is recommended that the Board of Education vote to accept the separation of employment of the following staff. Policy reference 3140, resignation and termination of staff. Would you like me to read the names?
Yes, ma'am. They're attempting to get there it is. You can proceed.
Riddell Holmes, high school principal at the end of the school year. Diane Thomas, paraprofessional, effective date February 1. And Tracy Burton, community engagement specialist, effective date February 1. Recommended action, again to be voted at the next regular board meeting, that the Benton Harbor Area Schools Board of Education vote to accept the separation of employment of aforementioned staff.
Thank you, Mrs. Gail. Do we have any questions from the board? Any questions or concerns regarding staff report H2?
Yes, this is Secretary Triplett.
You have the floor, Secretary Triplett. Secretary Triplett, you can proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I was looking at the form with the list of the form that's completely different than the form that's been previously presented. The column where they were actually resigned, terminated, or what have you, that's no longer on this document. And also I was looking, I see from the HR committee meeting, I see a couple of names, and these are immediate. These are resignations and terminations? Are these actual resignations? Because the form, like I said, last week and the week previously, it had the name and whether it was a resignation. So this form is changing a lot. And I'm just a little bit confused as to, because there are two new people, Ms. Thomas, Diane Thomas, who was a paraprofessional in the district for several years, and then with Tracy Burton, community engagement, and I didn't see that at our meeting this past week.
Yeah,
okay,
thank you for that.
Go ahead, Ms. Gill.
Thank you for that question, Mr. Triplett. President Robinson, I would like to request a closed session for the first reason allowed, to consider the dismissal, suspension, or disciplining against an employee. Because this seems to be a longer board meeting, I would like to be flexible. We can do that now. and go into a separate room, or if you would allow, we could also do that at the end of the meeting.
Okay, so at this particular time, you're requesting that we enter a closed session in order to discuss the details of this staff report?
That's correct.
Okay, can I have go ahead, were you still saying something?
No, I was going to say a motion is required, but you already knew
Yes,
that.
ma'am.
So.
I'm aware. Can I have a motion on the floor to enter closed session to discuss the details of staff report H2?
I make a motion that we go into closed session.
Okay, and can I get is there a support?
I second the motion.
Okay, Secretary Triplett, can you please call the roll? We actually have to take vote to enter closed session.
No.
For the closed session, Trustee Rocket Martin,
Yes.
Trustee Lee Buchanan, Trustee Trenton Barnes,
Yes.
Treasurer Angel Creighton,
Yes.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Vice President Bradley,
Yes.
President Robinson.
Yes, and I want to see if we can get Trustee Buchanan to unmute. Trustee Buchanan, can you unmute really quickly and enter your vote on entering closed session? Okay, so we can't get her unmuted. We can't take her vote, but we do have a quorum in approving that closed session. So we're going to go ahead and enter a closed session at 7:02 p.m. For those members of the community, you can stay on the line. I'm going to ask that our IT department allow us to enter a separate room for the board, and then we will come out of closed session when we're done. So board members, please accept the breakout room for room 1 for that closed session. Thank you for your patience as we entered our closed session to discuss human resources related business for our staff report H2. I want to thank Mrs. Gale for requesting that closed session. It was requested appropriately, and we did get the answers to the questions that we had. We are going to move right along to teaching and learning, and this will be presented by Dr. Luana Shelton. We are going to start with staff report T1.
Okay, and I'm going to do a new share.
Okay. And also while she's doing that, one of the clarifications that we had earlier is that normally in our standard meeting, we have an opportunity for public comment in this section. And I'm used to our standard meeting being just one meeting a month, but we're now doing our work sessions and our meeting. And so in this particular work session, we do not have an opportunity for public comment, but you will have an opportunity for public comment on this section before we take vote on accepting the plan next week during our regular board meeting. So you can proceed, Dr. Shelton, with your presentation.
Thank you. And somebody make sure that it's showing, please.
I can see it. I can also see your slides. So I'm not sure if you wanted to show us in this way or presentation mode.
I'm going to go presentation mode as long as you got it in front of you. All right, and I'm going to go fairly quickly because this stays standard. We only change a couple of things here and there, and it stays attached live to all of our board agenda, so anybody can review it at any time. So for this next week, we will be asking for reconfirmation of our plan, along with we must present our winter data from NWEA. So we will be going over this data, and I will ask for any improvement by the time I present it next week. With the winter data, we do have one score pending because we are still in the middle of makeups. We will go over our weekly interaction rates as always, and then by the time we hit next week's meeting, this week's data will be presented. I did want to take the opportunity. I did not change anything here, so you will see these numbers change, but we did discover that DEC may have an issue with how the data is being pulled, because we've had two different reports show two different figures. So it shows low because it's not pulling all the students. So we are working on getting that corrected. However, by mandate, we must post what we have. And so we will update it as we get the better information. Also under CAPE, we wanted to make sure that the public knew that these scores, I'm sorry, this percentage is going to remain fairly low. He has a handful of students that are going to be early graduates, but they must stay on in our Power School, and they must be counted so they can be considered students to graduate in June with everyone else. We are working on a way to try to tag those students so they don't show up in the attendance, but right now they are showing up. And our instructional delivery that we're going to ask you to reconfirm, it's going to be confirm and reconfirm. We're fully going back to what we started the year with, and that is returning to face-to-face option in AM/PM waves K-8. And that's all that I will be presenting. I'm going to stop that share, and I'm going to reshare the agenda. And I just wanted to point out that what I put in the PowerPoint are just highlights of what is on each of these reports, which is on the transparency dashboard and which is connected to every single board agenda. So at any time, you can look at the running totals of all of the information that we have been presenting month after month. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Dr. Shelton. I know that we don't take public comment today, but next week when we take public comment, will you be going through each of the sections of the agenda more thoroughly for?
Yep, I'll go through. I will go through the PowerPoint a little bit slower. And I think I remember you guys asking probably about 4 meetings ago, maybe to put like a plus or minus if we went up or down. Now that we have more data, we also have less space. So we'll think about making something a little bit more visual as well. So you can see if we're meeting our goal or if we slipped at all, in any possible explanation for that. That it would be the educational progress and maybe the weekly interaction rates, like I just gave a short explanation. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll open the floor if we have trustees that have any questions for Dr. Shelton. If there's anything that is needed or needed to be clarified prior to next week's vote, this is your opportunity to ask any questions that you may have.
I have a question.
You have the floor, Treasurer Creighton.
Good evening, Dr. Sheldon. I just wonder, thank you for your presentation. I just wonder if you can clarify why we would not open the floor for the public participation, since this is the work session. And then also, you might have shared this before, but if you could please remind us or send us something, or be prepared for next time to share the educational goals with us that you're referring to. I just honestly don't remember, and I can't find it.
Okay, so I'll answer the first question. Public comment has to come with my understanding. Let me just preference that. My understanding is that public comment comes with our instructional delivery when the board is voting to reconfirm how we are delivering instruction. Because this is a work session, there's nothing that indicates that we need that. If we need to do that, I just need to know what to do. But this is new territory. This all came down when we did our extended learning plan, that we had to present this part of it at the board. And the truth is, we only have to present the instructional delivery. I present everything because I want everyone to know what we are putting on the transparency website that we have to put in by law, but it only says that we have to do this piece. So I'm happy to take any suggestions around that.
Okay, and I believe she had two Did she answer the second question? My apologies. I think there
No,
was.
I didn't, because I wasn't sure
Okay.
what she was asking. So I was gonna ask.
I asked what the educational goals are. What educational goals are you referring to? That was my question.
The NWEA educational goals?
So for
I'm not
so
sure. It
she's
just says
asking,
educational goals.
yeah, on your progress on educational goals, she's asking which particular goals are we referencing in
Oh, yes.
this
So
section?
for the educational goals of this, for the sake of the extended COVID learning plan, we are always referring to NWEA. I have given you guys other information in the past just because the educational goals don't change. It's mid-year, end of the year. So I give you guys in between some of the other things that we might be doing in the district. But the educational goals are based on the NWEA.
Did you have additional questions, Treasurer Creighton?
I was trying to figure out how I can frame my comment. I don't know if it's a comment or a question, but this is a work session, and if you can just clarify the goal of that, so that our presenters will know that this is a place for us to know and ask questions, and we need to be able to do that comfortably without being attacked.
Okay, so I think what Treasurer Creighton is saying is that she wants to ensure that when she's asking a question, it's just a question for clarification, and she doesn't want it to be foreseeing that she's providing a criticism or anything of that nature. She's just asking for clarification. And so for anyone that's listening or seeking clarification on the conversation being had, normally on our agendas, we have 3 opportunities for public comment. The requirement states that we have to have a opportunity for the public to comment before the board votes to continue or readopt the extended learning plan, whether there's any changes or not. And so what Dr. Shelton was clear, what Treasurer Creighton was asking is, why didn't we have that public comment here? An opportunity for public comment. And what Dr. Shelton clarified is that it's required prior to the board taking a vote, the public is given the opportunity to speak. And so with us not being required to take a vote this evening, she didn't put the public comment there. Treasurer Creighton also asked about the progress on educational goals, what particular goals she was referencing, and she answered that question. So if you have questions regarding the extended learning plan, if you've looked at the agenda, or there's questions that you have, you are welcome to provide your question during the open public comment that we have at the end of the agenda. You can also email those questions to liz.goodwin@Ben Harbor Area Schools. As always, we invite you all to join our meetings each month, but we will be voting to accept the presented extended learning plan as Dr. Shelton provides it next week. So if you would like to provide comments on this learning plan prior to us doing that, we invite you to attend next week's meeting. Is there any other trustees that have any questions for Dr. Shelton regarding staff report T1? All right, hearing none, we are going to proceed to student support services. And just so members of the community are aware, we have 4 current chiefs. We have Mr. Scott Johnson that provides our financials. We have Mrs. Elizabeth Gale that provides HR related information. She's the Chief of Human Resources. We have Dr. Luana Shelton, which is the Chief of Teaching and Learning, and you all are quite familiar with each of them. We also have Mr. Mark Miller, and he is the Chief of Student Support Services. So for this particular meeting and moving forward, I've requested that he also be added to the agenda so that you all are aware of what he is actually doing within Student Support Services. So I am going to give the floor to Mr. Miller. And Mr. Miller, being that the public is not as familiar with you in the meetings, if you would like to just give them just a brief introduction of yourself, because we have not really heard your voice as much previously, I'll give you the opportunity to do that while they get your information pulled up.
Okay. I'm Mark Miller. I'm the Chief of Student Support Services. I have been in the district since May 2020. It's a great opportunity here. I'm in the community. I look forward to doing great work in the community. So if you guys see me, I'm always here, striving to take Ben Harbor to the next level.
Thank you. So it looks like they have your presentation up. If we
Okay.
can get it in presentation mode, that'd be awesome. And then I'll allow you to proceed.
Okay, thank you. So this is the student service action plan. So during our previous meeting that I was part of at the new board orientation, I discussed that, I wanted to work on our 5-year plan. And I want to go more into detail about our PBIS, TCI, and safe and civil schools and where we are with our trainings. If you can go to the next slide. All right, for PBIS. So what is PBIS? A proactive team-based framework for creating and sustaining safe and effective schools to focus to prevent problem behaviors, develop pro-social skills, and use data-based problem solving to address existing behavior concerns. So in the district, we had issues with suspension. So my number one goal was to reduce suspensions across the district. So at this point last year, we were over 1,000 suspensions, and the principals have been doing a great job. We have a total of 5 suspensions in our district. So next slide. This is a spotlight of PBIS in our buildings at Discovery Enrichment Center. Our DEC students earn PAWS tickets for following KIDS principles, which KIDS stands for kind to all, I respect others, do my best, and safety first. Every Thursday, Principal Barnes collects cards and rewards the students that have 4 or more punches with a prize from their box. Students' names are printed on the walls of the large paw that is placed there on the wall, and is great examples of students that's being great examples as kids. And we can go to the next slide. Next, I want to talk about therapeutic crisis interventions. What is TCI? Crisis intervention model designed to teach staff how to help children learn constructive ways to handle crisis. The objective is to proactively de-escalate a potential crisis situation and to also manage crisis therapeutic manner and necessary intervene physically in a manner that reduces the risk of harm to students and staff. So we have identified key personnel to receive this comprehensive training. TCI, the trainer, certified staff are planning to train each of our buildings currently. So right now we are currently in day 2 of 5 training sessions for our support staff this school year. Next slide. Safe and civil schools. The Ben Harbor area schools uses Safe and Civil Schools model as a framework for providing professional development around PBIS practices. This model is based on the premises that are 5 variables which teachers can manipulate to effectively manage instruction. The acronym STOIC is used to identify the 5 variables: structure the environment, teach expectations, observe and monitor, interact positively with students, and correct fluently. CHAMPS is the classroom management portion of Safe and Civil Schools. So this year, all of our Ben Harbor area school teachers have been provided training in Safe and Civil Schools this year. And that's the end of the Student Support Service Action Plan. Next, I will go into our student enrollment. So currently we have a total of 1,626 students in our district. Career and alternative pathways to education, our school has 87 students. Ben Harbor High School has 532 students. Fair Play Middle School has 381 students. Fairplain East Elementary has 212 students, and Martin Luther King Junior Elementary has 325 students. And Discovery Richmond Center has 89 students, which is our total of 1,626 students currently in our district. Next, I want to give an update on Concentric, which is our partner that does our Tier 3 home visits for our district. So currently, this is the data from the first semester of our 3 cohorts. So Concentric has done 271 home visits for 223 of our students. 129 of those have been hard contacts. Hard contact is when you meet with a parent or guardian, meet with a family member, a student, or a family friend, or someone that lives in that residence, but it may have been a wrong address. So the soft contact is a letter that has been delivered by the person that has conducted the home visit. And it has been 125 soft contacts and 17 no contacts. And this is for our first semester of home visits from Concentric. Yeah. And last, I want to give an update on our MHSAA, Michigan High School Athletic Association. So this is an update on our athletics. It's a pause right now on athletic activities and games until February the 21st. Right now we are practicing athletics, but it's non-contact. So right now we are waiting for MHSAA to come up with their plan to participate in games after February the 21st. So talking to our athletic director and meeting with coaches, we are ready to start our season, our winter season, February 22nd. So we look forward to that. And this is just an update on the recent pause for winter sports. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you, Mr. Miller, for your presentation. And just so that the community is aware, there's not necessarily a staff report for the board to accept on Mr. Miller's behalf, but we wanted to ensure that because we do have 4 chiefs, that the community is aware of the efforts of all of our chiefs. But I will open up the floor to our board to see if anyone has any particular questions or comments for Mr. Miller this evening.
Yes, Trustee Robinson, do I have permission to ask my question? I'm sorry, President Robinson, put some respect in your name.
Thank you.
Do I have permission?
You have the floor, Trustee.
Okay. My first question is, what was the number of suspensions last year? Do we have that data? And what building had the most suspensions?
So last year we had, from September to March, we had 1,329 suspensions from last year. And the most suspensions came from the high school. Okay, so our number is low at 5 because we have no high school students, correct? Yes, that could be, yes, because high school is virtual. Okay, my next question is, how much are we paying? I don't remember. I probably was not on the board. Concentric, or however you pronounce it. Concentric Education Solutions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's $40,000.
$40,000, yes.
Okay.
For 400 homes.
And Mr. Bowens, that is not paid through our general fund. We're getting support from our education foundation who approved us to do this.
Okay, thank you so much. That's my questions. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Bowens, and thank you, Dr. Townsend, for assisting with the answer to that question as well. Do we have any other questions from our board regarding Mr. Miller's report?
Yes,
There's 2 separate trustees that are attempting to speak. I believe I'm going to ask everyone to mute for a second. And then, is that Vice President Bradley?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, proceed. You have the floor. And then Secretary Triplett, I'll come to you next. Vice President Bradley, I'm not sure if you're speaking. Vice President Bradley.
I was just gonna make a comment, say good job on the
Vice President Bradley, we can't hear you right now. So can you please do me a favor? My apologies. I'm going to ask that you mute for a second and see if you can get in a better service area. I'm gonna go ahead and give Trustee Triplett the floor, Secretary Triplett the floor, so that Vice President Bradley can get in a better service area. I apologize, Vice President Bradley. I will allow you to take the floor once you are able to speak a little bit better so that we can actually hear you. You can proceed, Secretary Triplett.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Good to see you, Mr. Miller, and get an opportunity for you to be able to present some of the work that you're doing for Benton Harbor area schools. I do have a couple of questions. I noticed a few times that you were able to present that you presented areas as it relates to the athletic department. I do not see the athletic director on the organizational chart. He is an administrator. Is he under your department, the athletic director?
Currently, the athletic director is under teaching and learning because the principals are under teaching and learning, and the athletic director is under the principal.
Okay, so the principal is the direct supervisor of the athletic director.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. With Concentric, I do have a couple of questions. Well, first of all, I'd like to say I'm very concerned with the number of students who are at Benton Harbor High School. That 500 is very concerning to me. I would like to know, do you have the data if we wanted to get information as it relates to how many students were actually failing, how many students were actually dropped? Do you have that information? Would your office be the office that we would get that under?
Yes, I can get that information for you.
Okay, so and this, I guess this is to Superintendent, to Dr. Townsend. So with our committees that we have, I don't see this particular chief under any particular committee. So I don't know what category this department would fall up under, but I would like to discuss with the board or come up with something where we can work with the superintendent to find out what your thoughts as it relates to which committee would this particular office be reporting to and reporting out of.
Thank you. Am I allowed to speak, President Robinson?
Yes, sir, you have the floor.
Yes, it is our goal to make this its own committee. What we did last academic year, or the 2020 year, was just adopt what was already in place going during the pandemic. Mr. Miller did not come on until right before June, towards the end of the year. But it is our goal to make that a committee so we can get some good information flowing through and we can report regularly to the Board of Education.
Okay, so thank you so much, Dr. Townsend. With Concentric, and I was looking at some of the things, I looked at the data, had an opportunity to go through and review some of the work that they're doing. So is this information as it relates to home visits and what have you, is this in partnership with the principals of each individual school? And is the information that the principals are receiving and getting, or do our principals, do we have truancy officers anymore that's doing this work? Is Concentric working with principals, the truancy officers? How does that work with the things that we already have in place? And do we have things in place that's dealing with these same types of services?
If I may jump in. So yes, we do have our own workers in Benton Harbor area school that conduct home visits. What we saw was when we looked at the data and saw that we had a number of educators concerned about kids coming to the building for their safety. As the superintendent, I did not want to mandate people to go to young people's houses. So we reached out for additional support through our education foundation because of the possibility of educators saying, hey, we don't want to go to people's houses, not safe enough because we don't even want our young people to come to school. So we reached out for the support. Now, what we did see is that although in the past home visit was being conducted, we did identify that there's not an effective way to track that data. In fact, Mr. Miller and Dr. Shelton worked this week to put out a one-page on how to track data from our internal home visit advocates. So we're looking to refine that system because we may not have Concentric moving forward. That's to support us during this emergency. But when we come back in a traditional setting, our goal is to effectively do home visits where we can compare and contrast data based on the home visits that are done. The way it's being tracked is through Excel spreadsheets, but we need to put that into our student information system of Power School so we can run those numbers and compare and see where we are with reclaiming some of our young people who may be lost.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking, so our school employees, our principals, and our truancy officers, they don't have any data. They don't go out at all to do any of the work as far as visiting homes and things like that.
Yes, they do, but there has not been data to identify it all in our student information system.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any other trustees that have any questions on Mr. Miller's information that he's provided this evening?
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can. You're back. Thank you, Mr. Bradley. I didn't want to cut you off, and my apologies for taking the floor from you, sir, but we just could not hear what you were saying at that moment, but we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, no, that's understandable. And it's okay. I was just going to make a comment and say I'm glad to see that we're doing some progress in certain areas with the behavioral charts. That was kind of a neat idea to do that. And I'm glad to see suspensions are down. So I mean, right now on that. So that's all I'm going to say on that.
Thank you.
Any other trustees have any comments regarding Mr. Miller's information shared? Mr. Miller, I would like to say job well done. I know that you presented previously to our board during their orientation, but if I'm not mistaken, this is your first time actually presenting to the community. And as stated, we have 4 chiefs, and the community is very familiar with our Mr. Johnson, Ms. Gale, and Dr. Shelton, but I wanted to ensure that they were aware that we do have a 4th chief that is doing work as well. So Mr. Miller will be on our board moving forward so that any updates that he has, even if they're, brief updates from month to month, we want to ensure that he has an opportunity to share his efforts with not only the board, but the community as well. So if there are no other comments regarding Mr. Miller's presentation this evening, we are going to proceed on our agenda to old business. And so previously in our organizational meeting, we were able to get our calendar set up as it relates to how often we are meeting. We got an officer set up, our banks and things of that nature. And so there's some other things that we need to make sure that we get lined out. If anyone was present on that meeting and in some of our other trainings, Trustee Triplett participated in a training with the MASB, Michigan Association of School Boards, and there were some things that he learned in his training that he really wanted to present to the board. So this is a presentation provided by Mr. Triplett on information that he learned from his recent training on things that are to be included in board calendar. So this is his template that he has pre-prepared for the board for the information that he has learned. He is going to share that with us. So we want to ensure that you all know this is not, there's no dates. This is not a calendar that's set in stone. This is Mr. Triplett's heart, or Secretary Triplett, my apologies. Let me put some respect on your name. This is his presentation that he has put together for the board to go over the information that he learned, because we want to ensure that we are all knowledgeable in all areas. So I will give you the floor, Secretary Triplett.
We thank you so much.
Secretary Triplett, I'm not sure if it's just me, but I can't hear you right now. You were very clear before.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. Much better.
Okay, I'm trying to learn how to use headsets and everything. I'm gonna get this thing right. But training that I'm sharing with the president
Secretary Triplett, we can't.
about let me see. Let me unplug this.
Okay.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. Start video up for you guys.
I'm so sorry, Secretary Triplett. Every time you say, "Can we hear you?"
Start the video.
Once you start trying to present, we can't hear your presentation.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I'm just going to go through to give the Board of Education an opportunity to see that this year calendar.
Secretary Triplett, it's breaking up again, sir. My apologies.
Board of Education must do.
I've got a question.
You can't hear me?
Yeah.
We can hear you when you ask us if we can hear you, but once you start speaking, we can't actually hear you once you go into the depth of your information.
Okay, let me see. Let me try. I want to put the headsets back on again.
I can hear you loud and clear now.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you once you ask us if we can hear you. It's just once you start going through the presentation, we can't hear you.
Okay, I'm gonna start talking right now.
Okay.
Okay, so this would be an annual board calendar. And there are things that have to happen annually. There are responsibilities and that need to happen on an annual basis as it relates to our board work. One of the things, there are some things, a lot of benefits that were presented to us in the workshop where it helps to keep the board on track. The annual calendar helps members understand the work of the Board of Education. It ensures items don't get missed that are important. It balances the length of the agenda, and it helps the Board of Education and its members plan their own personal calendars as well. This does not negate our routine monthly items like recognition, public participation, consent, agenda items, committee reports, treasury reports, personnel reports, and action items, and annual governance team retreats and board work sessions. So it does not take away any of these routine items. If you would look at it, if you go down and you look at January, this is for all across the state of Michigan, these things that happen at board meetings, or this is the responsibility of boards throughout the state of Michigan. In January, it says here, there should be a ceremonial swearing in of the new board members. There should be an organizational meeting every January. There should be school board recognition. January is school board recognition month. But also have on here with insight, not such a new board, district goals. But in our meeting with the evaluation, we did make a couple of changes so that we can get back on track. So if you look in February, where it says we set annual district goals, review process, set goals and meetings. We draft the superintendent evaluation process, adopt superintendent goals and communication plans for upcoming year. We identify dates for superintendent evaluation cycle. We elect a MASB board of directors. We update on student count numbers in February. So this happens everywhere, all over the state, regardless to what. Like tonight, we did elect or have a discussion about the election of an MASB board of director for our region. In March, progress reports on district goals and strategic plans. So review budget policies and procedures and approve next year's school calendar. In April, we approved teacher tenure candidates. By April, non-renewal notices of employees are not going to be renewed. There's a board budget workshop annually. We approve the budget amendments, we review the ISD budget, and then there's an informal superintendent evaluation. I don't want to sit here and read it all to you, but if you go through, you look at May, you look at June, there's a public budget hearing that happens annually. You adopt general appropriation budget for the upcoming school year. You adopt the school improvement plan. You determine designated representatives for ISD elections, and this happened on the even year. So you look in July, you approve MHSAA, you adopt legal services. There's an organization meeting in preparation for the next school year. So these are things that happen with education all across the state of Michigan. In August, there's a back to school report. Policy adoption, what's happening, those things are reported in August before we go into our actual school year. There's an informal superintendent evaluation update. In September, progress on district goals, the strategic plan, you see that in the continuing theme because we're constantly building and growing. Appoint voting delegates for the MASB Delegate Assembly. Set annual tax levy and report presented to the board for approval. Complete assurances and certification in May. In October, we received the annual education report for our district. This happens in the state of Michigan in October. These are things that we know we're planning our agendas. This will help our superintendent to know these things that we want. This important things that are required of our district by go through, and you look at November.
Can you pause for a second? Because we're having a hard time hearing you right now. You cut in and out at certain times. We can hear you really clearly, and then it gets broken up again.
Okay, so I guess I'll just give an overview. This is an annual calendar. I would like for the Board of Education to look at it and to take it into consideration. I think that it gives us, it covers all of our responsibilities as a Board of Education that's required by the state, and things that we need to report and be on point. Because I'm quite sure and wanted to say to Mr. Johnson, if he's still on here, if you look at those, if there's anybody, if you look from any of our chiefs or to our superintendent, if there is anything in there that is missed that needs to be on this particular calendar, then we need to know as soon as possible. But I did submit this to the president of the Board of Education. It was recommended by the MASB. It is something that we should have the archives and stuff that from. If you see, you'll see all of the different steps as it relates to way up to the superintendent's final evaluation in December. Because a lot of times we don't want any major reports. That's critical to doing our due diligence at the Board of Education, and we are aware of these particular things, and we'll be a month in advance to look and observing. So that's
okay. So I'm not sure. I want to ensure everyone was able to hear what he was saying. He was breaking in and out at certain points, but essentially he's saying that this is a calendar that the MASB, which is the Michigan Association of School Boards, gives as a template for school boards across the state to utilize to ensure that we have certain things that must take place on a state basis within our calendar for the year. He also indicated that he would invite Dr. Townsend and his chiefs to review it because there are certain things that they essentially are doing or may already be doing that either aligns with this calendar or, for example, maybe on a different month of, a different month other than what he's indicated. So some of what he was saying we could hear really clearly. Some was essentially a little bit broken up, but essentially he provided this calendar based on the information that he has reviewed and learned from the Michigan Association of School Boards. So he wanted to ensure that he shared this information with the board and shares it with our superintendent and our chiefs, so that we can work on, collectively getting some things in line to ensure that we are taking action on things that do have to happen on an annual basis as a board. So thank you so much for the time that you put into providing this presentation and this template for us. I know that you gave us some really good details and going through this information, and I do value you taking the opportunity to go through this. I really do wish we could hear everything that you stated. We could hear the gist of your presentation. So again, I thank you. I want to see if there's any trustees that have any questions or comments on the order of what Secretary Triplett has put together, or and if after that, if there's any other comments from Dr. Townsend or our executive team, I'll open the floor up for communication regarding this calendar. So do we have any trustees that have any questions or comments regarding Secretary Triplett's presentation?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, you have the floor, Vice President Bradley.
I was just gonna say, I think it's a good idea. I think I was in that same class. There was the organizational meeting class. I think I was in that same class. So I'm glad that Secretary Triplett is spearheading that effort so that we all can kind of have as Treasurer Creighton says, a guide map or a road map to know what we got to do throughout the year. So I think that will really be something good that we can fall back on and just kind of keep us in line and kind of just tailor make it to how our calendar would go in Ben Harbor. So I think it's a good idea.
Okay, any other trustees have any input or feedback?
I would just like to thank, may I have the floor? I'm sorry.
Okay, 1 second. Trustee Buchanan.
She can go first. Let her go first.
Yeah, go ahead, Trustee Buchanan. You have the floor.
Well, it's hard to understand because I don't know whether it's a computer or what, but with Mr. Triplett, I can understand everything he's saying, but I'm just letting you know ahead of it. It was just static like or something. So we need to work on that to get that so we get that done, decent in order. And the only thing what I'm saying, I had my phone. I was on my computer. Then I got on my phone, so people can call me left and right. So what I'm gonna say is, I think the school board, especially Ms. Creighton and Mr. Triplett and Ms. Martin, they've been in the school system when I was out there working, so I know they know the rules, and they know, and that makes me feel good, knowing that somebody's thinking the same way you thinking, because it seems like this boy is Trent Bourne and Mr. Bradley, but what I'm saying is, we got to appreciate each other more, and I got a program that I'm gonna bring. I used to get 110%. Teachers in the community, parapro, bus drivers, whoever. And then we need to praise our people and keep them lifted up. Thank you very much. I got to hang up this phone and I got to take this call because my granddaughter had death in her family. So pray for the Purnell family. Thank you.
Okay, are you exiting the meeting, Trustee Buchanan?
I don't know yet. I got to see somebody to come pick me up. I'm going to stay on there as long as I can.
Sure. They'll mute.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Buchanan.
I can hear you. That's the main thing.
Okay, I'm going to ask that you go ahead and mute Trustee Buchanan. Treasurer Creighton, you have the floor.
Thank you. I was just going to thank Secretary Triplett for his willingness to share this document. I'm a person that do like to know what's going on, and so I really appreciate having this overview. I was just asked that. Well, I guess I do have a question as well. If that's okay. Um, have we or do we know if our current calendar has this been taken into consideration, or is this a new document to the cabinet or the superintendent that's been creating the calendar? And they don't have to answer that question today. I just wonder if this was something that was they were aware of, and are our calendars already set up using this document?
Treasurer Creighton, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, this is just an annual calendar. These things, regardless of what we have on our calendar, these things are things that have to be done within these timelines, within these months. So these are things that happen. When you look at May, those things that are listed in May, regardless of what we're doing in Benton Harbor area schools, in May, these things are happening. These are requirements, and these are things that, like in February today, it says elect MASB Board of Directors. That's something that happens annually. So these are not specific things. These are not things that are up for question as to whether or not we have a choice to do them or not. These are things that have to happen, and they should be happening in these particular months to keep us on track.
Thank you.
Okay, and then point as an example for Secretary Triplett's calendar, electing the MASB Board of Directors is something that we have to do. We went over that earlier in our meeting this month because the state requires that we determine which person we're going to nominate, as we discussed earlier. And as far as, for example, there's budget hearings and things of that nature that are on the calendar that Mr. Johnson primarily presents to the board for us to review and things of that nature. So I think you're asking, as far as things that we already have in place, are they aligned with the information that what Trustee Triplett has presented? And my answer to that question would be yes. A lot of the things that are on this calendar our chiefs have in place that they present to the board. But Trustee Triplett wanted to ensure that the board sees this to indicate that we should have an actual calendar as a new board in place to ensure that we are aware of things that have to happen within particular timeframes. So we can ensure that we are dotting our I's and crossing our T's as it relates to getting these guidelines in place. So thank you so much, Trustee Triplett. I'm not sure what took place with your connection. At certain times you were clear as day and other times it was a bit broken. But I do appreciate you taking the time to get this together for us. And I do value the effort that was placed into putting this presentation together. I did forward this information to our board earlier this afternoon to ensure that they have a copy of this as well to review. And so we are going to move right along, unless we have other questions. I'm sorry. Are there any other questions from our trustees?
This is Trustee Martin. I was kind of thinking like Trustee Clayton was thinking, but I'm glad you did clarify that it is aligned with what we already have on our calendar.
Yes, and these are some of our duties. These are things that we have to make sure as a Board of Education that we give oversight on these areas. What does is an opportunity. So we will be in the midst of a meeting or a work session asking about what is this specific report. Because, in May, this is due, so we can start getting questions and information prior to these things happening. Meetings, everything. So it educates us and it keeps us on track to keep our district.
Okay, we're going to move forward with new business. There is no current new business on the agenda. Does anyone have any new business to present? Okay, hearing none, we're going to move forward with open public comment. I'm going to read my statement again so that if there's anyone that wasn't present earlier today is aware of our expectations regarding public comment. The Board of Education recognizes the value of public comment on educational issues and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on district matters. Tonight, there were 2 areas of comment on the agenda: public comment on agenda items only, which took place earlier this evening, and open public comment, which is where we are now. Per policy 0167.3, which governs board participation at board meetings, we request that you preface your comments by an announcement of your name, address, and group affiliation, and if appropriate and when appropriate, you provide that information as far as your affiliation is concerned. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to a 3-minute duration, and per our bylaws, no participant may speak more than once during this meeting. Participants shall direct all comments to the board and not to staff or other participants. If you have specific questions for the board or executive team that require follow-up, please email those directly to liz.goodwin@bentonharborareaschools.org. So at this particular time, we will open the floor up for public comment. Is there anyone here this evening that would like to make a public comment?
Yes, my name is Sharon James, 777 East Napier Avenue, apartment K2. My question is in regards to instruction and curriculum. I would like to know, will there be an opportunity in any of your upcoming board members regarding the statistics around teaching and learning and the actual stats on our graduation dropout rate, along with the current reports on how our students are performing on internal assessments, if there are any internal assessments? I know that you guys have mentioned in your former meetings about states assessments possibly being suspended. So if there are internal assessments, what are the ratings of those assessments at the high school level, and for the particularly the Michigan Merit Exam, along with the 3rd grader reading proficiency levels? That's very important to me, and I haven't heard any discussion topics along that line or seen anything on your agenda that even addresses the opportunity for that conversation to disclose such information that the public would like to know, me namely as a public member of Benton Harbor, as a resident of Benton Harbor. I'd like to know that.
Okay, so thank you so much for your comment, Mrs. James. So the comment that you are making, it was posed in a question form, but the comment that you're making is that you would like to see more information regarding the actual performance of the district as it relates to some of our Michigan standard tests and our performance of our students in general, correct?
Well, kind of, sort of. What I'm saying is, President, that you guys mentioned that there may be a suspension of the state assessment. So with that being said, I'm asking if the district has any internal assessments. If they do, and if they don't, why not? But if they do, what are the current scores for those ratings? Because I know that Michigan Merit Exam scores have been relatively low over the years. And I know with the recent state requirement for the last few years about the 3rd graders reading proficiency, I'd like to know, what are those scores? What do they look like? And are there any mechanisms there to measure the instructional performance of that population of students?
Okay, so I believe that we have your particular question in place, and I believe that that particular question is a question that would be answered by information from our from Dr. Shelton, our chief. So we can ensure that if Liz could connect with you to get your information, so that we can follow up with you regarding your question regarding those scores and things of that nature, and then we can attempt to include that information on our agendas moving forward for the public in our community. And Dr. Townsend, I'm not sure if you wanted to provide a comment to that or not this evening.
we'll provide it in our weekly status report.
Okay. So what Dr. Townsend is referencing, he has a weekly report that he provides to the board monthly, where he gives us updates on questions that we've asked as well as questions that have been asked by the community. And so if you could give your information to Ms. Goodwin, so we can ensure that we get your question in detail, because there were a couple different pieces of your question. We want to make sure that we capture all of that so we can get that information implemented in our board meetings moving forward and ensure we can give you a follow-up on your actual question.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any other members of the public that are here for public comment? Okay, so hearing none, we're going to proceed with superintendent announcements and comments by Dr. Townsend.
Good evening, everyone that stuck around with us. I'll be brief this evening. I do want to pre-message that at our regularly scheduled board meeting, it is my goal to do highlight of staff members who are doing phenomenal things in our school building at each level, at the elementary level, at the middle school level, and at the high school level, even at our alternative education level. The goal is to highlight those individual educators that are raising the bar here in Benton Harbor area schools. Additionally, I would like to add in pre-message to the community that we will be recruiting members for our Parent Advisory Council, for our Teacher Advisory Council, as well as a Key Communicators Network. It is my goal to hear all information at every layers of Benton Harbor area schools, greater community, to kind of guide some of the decision-making that we have as we move forward to lead for excellence in Benton Harbor area schools. And very last, I'm a member of the Canton Rotary Club, but I've officially transferred my membership to be a member of the Rotary Club of St. Joe Benton Harbor. So my commitment to the Benton Harbor area schools community continues to grow. Very excited to be a member of the Rotary Club here in St. Joe and Benton Harbor, so I can understand every aspect of the district at every level and be able to lead us to a better future. Thank you so much, President Robinson, for the opportunity, and I am finished.
Thank you, Dr. Townsend. So we are going to move on to board member announcements. And I am going to start with Trustee Bowens this evening, if you would like to provide your announcements or comments to the board and the community.
I have no announcements. Just my comments is to the community. I've been recently hosting a book discussion on the other side of the river. And back in the 90s, we started discussing when Benton Harbor area schools had Dr. Sherman Allen here, and how the parents were involved, and we were going out into the community in a housing complex and making sure that education was a priority, and we were raising the test scores and students' academic levels increased. And we got to get back to that basics. I'm interested in seeing after COVID, we still will be a district and exist. So what is the plan for us to increase those scores and increase parental engagement? I'm glad to hear about the parental committee advisory council, but I'm more interested to see how do we go from after COVID to making sure that we are providing a quality education. Also, what was interesting today is the state superintendent testified and said that because of the COVID learning loss, some districts may need to go for a longer school year than 180 days. And it would be interesting if we as Benton Harbor area schools need to look into that. That's my comments.
Thank you, Trustee Bowens. Next, we are going to allow Trustee Rockette Martin to provide her comments.
I'd like to thank everybody for their presentations that they've done this evening. And I too would like to see what we could do to get some of our kids back into the district, to get all of our kids really, if there's some kind of initiatives that we as a board can present to parents in the community that would, you know, ensure, or even you'd have to say persuade them to give us a chance to educate their children once again. So that's kind of like my focus, because we need our kids. We need our kids, and we want to be the ones to educate our kids. So if we can get something going there, I'd appreciate it too. And I think that goes along with what Trustee Boyne was saying. I remember education in the street, where we went to the presented school at the different housing complexes. So that did help to raise test scores. But I'm also looking forward to working on with some of those committees as far as getting our children back into our district. And I appreciate everything that what everybody is doing and how they are diligent. And Mr. Triplett, how you are diligent. I appreciate you. I appreciate everybody and the work that they're doing.
Thank you, Trustee Rockette Martin. Next, we're going to have Trustee Buchanan. Do you have any additional statement that you'd like to unmute and make this evening? Any announcements or statements?
Oh, can you hear me now? You can hear me?
Yes.
I would like to apologize to the community and the board member, but my battery went dead. And I think we was on, I really truly think we was on the right, we had the right ball game. We just got to make sure we pitching the ball across the plate. Because there's a lot of things like Dr. Townsend mentioned. When I first got on the board, it was 110%. People in the community, they're doing some great work. Trade them, put them up there. I know most of you guys know Ollie Hull, and you remember Reverend Hull, he related to Mr. Triplett, but my drill team, we went to Chicago the first time I went. And I tell them all the time, they ask you a question, don't look at me. And they done so well that the Senate, he was a senator, I forgot his name. They had to go back and they paid for everything. And there are a lot of people in the community that have gone on home to rest, that Reverend Hull had Reverend Don Atkins to take me to Chicago. It's just, thing I think about how these kids, project can't do that. Yes, they can, but we got to help them. We can't let them kids, every weekend I get tired, get crying, somebody got killed. We can do this, board member. We have to start. Somebody has to do it. We can do it. Let's each grab a kid. They had talent shows, but the high school, they ain't got nothing to do. They have nothing for our teenagers to do. So let's work together. Let's keep praying for one another and thinking that way, and we're going to be all right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Trustee Buchanan, for your comments and your passion displayed this evening as well. We're going to move it right along to Treasurer Creighton.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to thank the Board of Education for trusting me to be the chair of the Finance and Human Resources Committee. I would also like to thank the community and the 13,000 voters for trusting this board with the task of partnering with our superintendent and his cabinet in turning our district around. I would also like to thank the superintendent and his cabinet for the work that is being done, and I look forward to receiving the district's current mission, vision, and goals in the immediate future. I would also like to say that I'm looking forward to receiving the updates on the current state of the district as it relates to teaching and learning. And Superintendent Townsend, it is important, and I would like to just share this with you, that I think it's important that you teach your cabinet and the staff how to communicate with the Board of Education in a respectful and professional manner. And I look forward to you doing this in the immediate future.
Okay, so we are going to move it right along to Secretary Triplett. And thank you for your comments as well, Treasurer Creighton. I'm not sure if Secretary Triplett can hear me.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I would like to take this opportunity just to piggyback on what Ms. Collins said as related to those 13,000 plus voters that went out in the midst of a pandemic to vote for us in this past election. When I went to Benton Harbor High School, there were 2,700 students in that high school. We came to that high school with 800 freshmen. We were on split sessions. The seniors and the juniors went in the morning, first through fifth hour, and we were freshmen, and we came to school fifth through 10th hour. We got out of school at 5:45 in the evening. When I see 500 students at Benton Harbor High School, it breaks my heart. I wanted to be understood that I am a tiger, that I love Benton Harbor, and I love Benton Harbor High School, and I love Benton Harbor Area School. I am very excited to have been given the opportunity to work on, to chair the curriculum and instruction committee. I've years heard just a whole bunch about finance and curriculum and instruction, 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 instruction is critical. This is a school district that educates children. I don't see a lot of conversation about our children, and I haven't seen them be forefront in a long time. I just want to put this out here. I'm going to ask questions because I want to know. I am aware of confidentiality. I've worked in this district for almost 30 plus years, and I have a master's degree in educational leadership. And I said that to say this. I see some good things, I see potential, but I am ready for us to move in the right direction as it relates to educating kids and getting our kids back to Benton Harbor area schools. It is important that we inspect what we expect, and none of this is ever personal. My ego is not that big that I think that anything that somebody say to me, about me, or towards me is about me. So I'm excited about working with the superintendent. I am just really excited and proud of this Board of Education. And President, I'm the secretary, and I'm here at your disposal to assist in the way that I can. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Secretary Triplett. We are going to proceed to Vice President Bradley.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. I just want to say thank the community for coming out, for the ones that did stick around. This is a part of the democratic process of, our government. So I do want to thank everybody for coming out. I want to, thank everybody who's in the Facilities and Operations Committee for letting me be the chair. So I look forward to working with that. There is some exciting news from the state today. I don't know if anybody saw that article from the Detroit Free Press. Governor Whitmer, I think, made an announcement today that there is going to start a free college tuition program for people over 25. So I think that'll be good news for a lot of our parents who would like to go back to school. It's called the Michigan Reconnect program. And I think I may take advantage of that program too if I qualify for that. So wanted to put that out there because I know we do deal with education as being the Board of Education. One quote I always like to say is when people see no vision, they stop caring. So let's make sure that we are putting forth a vision. Let's not change is hard to do, so let's not try to focus too much on you know what how I want to say it being things in the past. Let's move on so we can keep on pushing forward. And so let's make sure people see our vision and what we have to do as a board. Other than that, I'm not going to prolong. Also, board members, remember the Winter Institute is coming up, so I want to make sure I put that plug out too. And thank you.
All right, so it is now my turn as president of the board. I just want to thank the members of our Board of Education for providing their time and expertise this evening. I want to thank our Superintendent, Dr. Townsend, and our executive team for providing their reports, as well as members of the community for joining us for our board meeting. As stated, this was a work session this evening. We will have a work session on the first Tuesday of each month, and then a meeting where we take vote the following Tuesday. So if you are interested in continuing to see the work that the board is doing, I invite you to join us next week, and then continue to join us weekly each month, the first and second Tuesday of the month for our meetings. I also want to remind all of our members of the board and our executive team that we are one team, all with the same collective goal. And so there are going to be moments where we're going to have questions and clarification sought. It's just to ensure that we have an understanding of the information being presented to the committee. I also want to ensure that the board is aware that our team is trying to do their best in providing detailed information so that the board can be satisfied with that information. And as a new board and a new collaborative team, I think it's going to take effort for us on both sides to get to know each other and work effectively as a team. But I feel as though we have all of the best pieces possible to ensure that we are successful as a district. I do think that there are positive things that are coming for our district because I cannot foresee any greater combination of individuals and professionals that would be able to turn Benton Harbor area schools around. So I thank each of you, each member of the board, for entrusting me with the responsibility of your president. It has been a whirlwind already, but I assure you that I am committed to doing my absolute best in leading this board to effectively turn our district around. I have faith in Dr. Townsend, and I have faith in each of our chiefs and our school district staff at large. So I just want the community to know that we are here because we value your students and we value your input, and we are committed to achieving excellence as a district. And we will do that in moments where we are smiling with each other or not. We will accomplish greatness one way or another, and I will ensure that we do that. So I thank you all for your patience this evening. And I am going to end my comment because I know that we are all tired. I promise you our meeting next week will not be as lengthy. And at this particular time, I am going to ask if there is anyone that would like to provide a motion that we adjourn our meeting this evening.
I move that we adjourn our meeting.
I second.
So the motion was moved by Trustee Rocket Martin and supported by Vice President Bradley. Secretary Triplett, can you please call the roll so that we can adjourn the meeting?
I guess you didn't hear me. I had said.
Trustee Rocket Martin.
Yes.
Trustee Lou Buchanan.
Yes.
Trustee Trenton Bowens.
Yes.
Treasurer Angel Creighton.
Yeah.
Secretary Triplett, yes. Vice President Bradley.
Yes.
President Robinson.
Yes, sir. Okay, so the motion passed. So we will adjourn our meeting for this evening at 8:49 p.m. I hope each of you have a wonderful evening, and we will see you next week, Tuesday at the same time. Thank you.
All right. Have a
Good
good
night,
evening, everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Miss Robinson, call me. Miss Robinson, call me, please, right now. I gotta tell you something.